3, 2.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich. I'm Lorna Virgili, Public Information Officer, and joining us today from the Department of Health and Human Services is Ms. Kimberly Townsend. She's a Senior Administrator for Communicable Disease and Epidemiology for HHS. And our special guest today is Maryland Department of Labor Deputy Secretary Jason Perkins Coyne. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And let's get started, Mr. County Executive. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing okay. Thanks for joining me again this week. On Monday, I enjoyed walking in the Kensington Labor Day Parade to express thanks and appreciation for our county's workers. And forefront in our mind this year are the thousands of federal workers, contractors, and employees of NGOs and immigrant workers who are having their lives and the lives of their families disrupted by the chaotic decisions of the president. We're seeing some of the impacts of the federal cutbacks already. I mentioned some of these examples a few weeks ago, but they are, I think, worth repeating. In July, or as of July, Montgomery County is down 9,603 jobs compared to last year, and that's a 1.7% reduction year over year in employed persons living here, whether they work in DC, Virginia, or in the county itself. We're also bracing for October, when many jobs simply disappear from the federal budget. Some of them through the buyouts that were offered, some of them from early retirements, but a whole bunch of them are going to be because those jobs are no longer included in the budget. This budget that is going forward goes forward without a lot of the jobs that were in the previous budget. And the court's ability to protect those jobs prior to October goes away in October. Prior to October, they were in the budget and funded. Starting this October, they are no longer in the budget. So we are waiting to see how many jobs are actually going to be lost in October. And we are expecting that this is when we'll start seeing the big cuts. This chart shows our unemployment rate, and you can see that, we spiked obviously during COVID. That's that little gray area in the middle of that chart. And then we had gone on a really nice downward trend in unemployment, but it's been picking back up, still well below historic levels. Being under 3% is a really good place to be. But in the last month, we've ticked above it. And we're not happy about this. Montgomery County unemployment for July was 3.6, up 1.6 percentage points from January of 2025. The last time it was this high was back in October of 2021. We believe the actual impact is going to be a lot larger, potentially 20,000 to 40,000 jobs that could be lost when you factor in contractors, NGOs, and vendors who support the federal operations. And the situation just reinforces that we can't afford to be so dependent on federal jobs, and that our efforts to diversify our local economy, particularly by capitalizing on strengths in life sciences and our tech industries, was definitely the right direction for us to turn in. To address these increases on employed individuals, we've invested an additional $700,000 this year in the budget to expand WorkSource Montgomery's in-person operations to help our residents adapt and find new opportunities. This infusion of funding is going to allow us to serve more people and to serve them person to person through in-person meetings. If you talk to anyone who's looking for work, it can be very isolating to just be sitting on a computer applying for one job after another. Our WorkSource Montgomery offices in Wheaton provide anyone looking for work with the opportunity to talk to someone. We're also offering resume writing classes at our libraries and at Montgomery College. They have a host of training programs for displaced workers that they can utilize. I've also been very impressed by the speed that the Moore Miller administration has accomplished working in partnership with Montgomery College and setting up their program to transition federal workers into teaching positions. They are also deeply concerned about the impact of potential federal actions on our immigrant workforce, particularly regarding construction and restaurant workers, which could rapidly bring things to a halt if we don't have people to do the work. And this is another one of those things where what happens in October is going to be really important. The Homeland Security budget has historically been not very big. This budget brings it up to $40 billion. And the intention of that large increase and large number is to enable them to hire an army to actually carry out the displacement of people. They weren't able to do it with the number of ICE officers they currently have. Maryland, for example, only had 16 ICE officers just as of a couple of months ago, so they weren't in a position to do things. But what happens in October is the funding of an operation that's large, much larger than anything we've seen. So don't get too comfortable with the lack of really striking actions that have happened up to now. We're really concerned that once these people are hired, this is the next thing we're going to say. This is why it's important to remain close to our state labor leaders, and we're very much on the same page in our responses to the challenges that the state has. In that line, I'm very happy to welcome Maryland's Department of Labor Deputy Secretary Jason Perkins Cohen to join us today. So welcome aboard.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be with you all today. I do want to endorse the county executive's reference to WorkSource Montgomery. It is a great place for anyone who's looking for jobs. They have great services. Local Director Featherstone is outstanding. But more broadly, I want to talk to you all about a few things, and then if time is available, happy to take some questions. So as you probably know, Maryland has one of the highest concentrations of federal employees in the country. And again, not surprising to this group, Montgomery County has the largest number of federal workers of any county in Maryland. So when you look at data from 2019 to 2023, which is the most recent data we have at this level, and it's before this year's layoffs, more than 74,000 federal civilian workers lived in Montgomery County, and 48,500 federal civilian jobs were based in Montgomery County. The largest numbers of those were at NIH and FDA. So again, not surprising that Maryland and Montgomery County have been heavily impacted by the federal job losses and the funding cuts. From January of this year through July, Maryland's federal workforce has declined by about 12,400 jobs. It's the largest federal workforce decline in the nation, both overall and per capita. And then federal data shows that the Frederick, Gaithersburg, Bethesda area, they've experienced the greatest loss of federal jobs in the state. Montgomery County had the highest number of federal workers applying for and receiving unemployment insurance claims. We refer to this as UCFE in Maryland for the week ending 8/23. Still, as the county executive referenced, Maryland and Montgomery County are resilient. So under the Moore-Miller administration since January of 23 through July of this year, Maryland added 101,700 total non-farm jobs. It's a rate of growth of about 3.7%. It ranked 9th in the nation. And Maryland's, despite the turmoil, Maryland's labor force participation rate has remained the same at 64.7%. We do offer a lot of residents a lot of support to residents who are seeking assistance. The county executive, again, referenced what's going on within the county. And we want to make sure that Maryland's federal workers know we're here to support them. So just a few things I'll touch on. So first, we have a dedicated resource page. I can put it in the chat, but it's labor.maryland.gov/federal workers. It provides information about unemployment insurance benefits and reemployment support. Specifically on unemployment insurance, federal civilian employees who become unemployed through no fault of their own can apply for unemployment insurance compensation. We strongly encourage that. But workers should file in the jurisdiction of their duty station. So if you're a Montgomery County resident, but you normally work in the district, you should apply in the district. Obviously, the other holds true. If you're a district resident, but you work in Montgomery County, that's where your duty station is, you should apply in Maryland or any other Maryland county. We also are hosting virtual workshops designed specifically for formal federal workers and contractors and others impacted by federal government transition. It's available every weekday from 9 to 12. So that was today. and we've already served or helped more than 1,500 people have attended so far. We offer full support for people looking for work. We work with our local partners. We offer resume workshops, individual career guidance, mock interviews, career and skills assessments. And last, I would just touch on there is a specific assistance program for federal workers. It's called the Federal Worker Emergency Loan Program. It is a $700 no interest loan. It is a loan, so it does have to be repaid within about 180 days. And you can learn more about that at the labor.maryland.gov website. So I'll stop there, but I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Secretary. I see Kate Ryan has her hand up. Thank you, Kate. I see that Anthony Featherstone, Director for WorkSource Montgomery, is also here in case you might have some questions for him as well. Okay, Kate, questions for the Deputy Secretary. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate this. I did just speak to someone at WorkSource Montgomery today. We have that story up and running. But a question about the unemployment right now and how quickly that is working for these folks who find themselves needing, to file and to get these benefits. Mr. Perkins Cohen, can you talk to that at all? What's the turnaround? And I ask because I know that in the past during COVID, for example, when things were really tough for a lot of people, there were some glitches. How is it going so far? And then again, single best piece of advice you would give to someone who's looking now?
Sure, those are great questions. And I didn't realize that Director Featherstone was online. So in terms of applying for unemployment insurance benefits, I think we're doing relatively well in turning those around as quickly as possible. We fully understand that people are in crisis and it's important to get resources in their hand as appropriate as quickly as possible. I will say there's a couple of unique aspects for this population, particularly for federal workers. I'm not referring to contractors. I'm referring to federal government workers who have been displaced. And a couple that I would point out. First is, as I mentioned, it's important to apply in the jurisdiction where your duty station is. So I know that can slow people down. A lot of people understandably think of themselves as a resident of a state or a jurisdiction, and they're going to apply there. Unfortunately, if they apply in Maryland, but they work in DC, we would have to redirect that, so that can lead to some delays. The other part about this that's tricky, that should be highlighted, is that by law, and this is not specific to federal workers, this is for anyone that applies for unemployment insurance, we need to verify, every state needs to verify with the employer. So when someone says, I was laid off from my job, we have to send a communication to that employer to say they have a right to. So we have to say, this person applied for unemployment insurance. They suggested that they were laid off. Is that true? What can you tell us? And that employer has 10 days to respond. 10 days, again, is the law, so there's no change in that. But that means that if they do not respond, we cannot take action for those 10 days. So that can delay our processing or any state's processing. And so for those workers that may be experiencing some delay, that can be a big reason why. In terms of your second question around advice, I would say a couple things. One is, again, I would absolutely connect with WorkSource Montgomery or whatever jurisdiction is closest to you. I would look for every opportunity to brush up on your skills. There are free training, there are workshops available. I mentioned one that the state offers every Wednesday. And as I mentioned, over 1,500 people have taken advantage of that opportunity. And then keep an open mind. I'm a federal worker myself many years ago, and be ready to pivot. If your dream is to stick in public service, that's a beautiful thing. Obviously, I'm a public servant myself. But if there's other opportunities, look for what might be your passion, and be open to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Members of the media, any more questions for the Deputy Secretary this afternoon? No more questions related to this topic? All right, well, Deputy Secretary, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Perhaps you can remain on this call. Otherwise, if you need to depart, please feel free to do so. Thank you
Thank
for
you so
joining
much.
us. Mr. County Executive.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today, and we'll make sure your comments go into the weekly message we put out so that it gets a broader distribution among residents in the county. I think it's important for people to hear from folks in the government who are trying to manage the things that we're trying to deal with right now. So thank you for being here and convey my thanks to the folks back in Baltimore. Meantime, in the county news, we're starting our FY27 operating budget forums next week. We're in the early stages of formulating the FY27 operating budget, and input from the public is crucial. That's why I, and along with our regional services offices and our community partners, will be hosting 12 community conversations through November. These conversations are an opportunity for the public to tell us how they think their tax dollars should be spent. And I urge residents to participate in these discussions because it's their feedback that's going to help shape our future budget. We gain valuable insights from these conversations, and they help guide our decisions and priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. And the budget ultimately reflects our community's goals and values. That's certainly what we've tried to make our budgets reflect. We think it's important that people see in our budget the kind of things we're trying to accomplish, how we're trying to address problems in the community, how we're trying to take advantages of opportunities to move the county forward. So the budget contains lots of everything. I will say that we're still not only in the early stage, but we're still not knowing what the cuts from the federal government could, how they could impact the county government and the state government. And without knowing how many jobs are going to be lost, we're really not altogether sure what we can count on in terms of tax revenue in the next year. If you think about it, people pay income taxes, and if most people stay employed through October, but if jobs start shrinking in November and December, then we might see a significant drop in incomes over the last 2 to 3 months of the year, and that would impact our income tax revenue, and that obviously is going to impact our ability to fund different things in the budget. So there's a lot of fluidity that we're dealing with that comes from the circumstances that are coming out of Washington right now. But I, urge people to come out and take advantage of the opportunity to talk to us. It does help us understand what people are concerned about in the community. Our very first meeting is this coming Monday, September 8th, from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And it's going to be held in the East-West Room at the Bethesda Chevy Chase Regional Services Office. We understand that not everyone can attend in person. That's why this, like most of our forums, will be a hybrid event, giving residents the option to participate virtually. This is the first of many opportunities to participate. There will be forums in each one of the county's 5 regions, as well as outreach to different audiences. 2 non-English language forums will be held, one in Spanish and a multilingual forum conducted in English with interpretation services provided in Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese. Every year, we seek new ways to better connect with our community, and we've initiated conversations aimed at educators and groups like the African diaspora and seniors in our community. I look forward to hearing from the first community conversation participants beginning next week and over the next few months. Another nice news of this last weekend, I want to recognize the very important opening, the grand opening that I attended on Saturday of the MoCo Pride Center in Bethesda. We cut the ribbon for the MoCo Pride Center, which is now open 7 days a week at the Bethesda Chevy Chase Regional Services Center. And it's taken a lot of work over the years to have a place to support our LGBTQ plus community, and the center is going to feature workshops, wellness activities, and a library. It's going to be a refuge and a beacon of hope for anyone who's struggling or searching for a supportive community. Montgomery County has been attentive to these concerns, and we're really glad that we finally found a location where we could actually provide a facility for this community. The LGBTQ plus community needs a place like this now more than ever. Trump and the federal government are trying to make discrimination and racism great again. This is something they take great pride in. And here in Montgomery County, we're going to continue to say no. Opening this center now is a clear sign that Montgomery County is going to continue to be an ally and a proud supporter of all the diverse communities in Montgomery County. So it was a great event. It was really well attended, and it was just nice to get this project finally open after a number of years of talking about it. On a really fun note, coming up this Saturday, September 6th, at Veterans Plaza in Silver Spring, from 3 to 10 p.m., Silver Spring is going to be hosting the Jazz Fest. I'm excited to introduce the legendary Preservation Hall Jazz Band, who are headlining the festival this year. I once traveled to New Orleans to see this. The Grammy winners are nationally recognized for preserving and promoting traditional New Orleans jazz, and they're one of several artists sharing 2 stages for the event, covering a wide array of jazz genres. Every year I attend this festival, and I've been introduced to new music and artists. While the music is the focus, the Jazz Festival brings thousands of visitors to downtown Silver Spring. The festival site is surrounded by wonderful restaurants, several with an international flavor. It's hard to be in Silver Spring and not find a restaurant with international flavor. I was there last weekend for the Ethiopian Day Festival, and we're lucky to have so many community organizations and supporters who can take the lead on these large events and allow many people throughout the community to enjoy the arts and to connect with each other. As many people are aware, Purple Line construction is well underway, which is another way of saying it's still a real pain to try to drive through parts of Silver Spring. It's been really tough on many local businesses. There's been a program that's provided some more support to businesses, but we're going to go back and look for more because we really have not provided adequate support. This project has dragged on and on and on, as many of you know. It is a very difficult construction area to navigate, and I would say in the world of projects that I've seen constructed, this one is not going to win any prizes for how they did it. Hopefully events like Ethiopian Day Festival and the Jazz Fest are going to help draw people into the downtown who are going to stay and patronize the businesses there. Like I said, there are going to be great opportunities to have a good dinner when you're down there. So please, if you come down for Jazz Festival, stay for the food around it. And before we open up the question, I'm going to give my staff an opportunity to provide any updates they want to share. And we'll start with our health team.
Good afternoon, and thank you, sir. There are no updates or recent changes from public health this week.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Members of the media, this is another opportunity for questions for the county executive. Place your hand if you have any questions. Oh, there's Marianne Chassat, Montgomery Community Media. Good afternoon, Marianne.
Good afternoon. Sorry, there's some construction happening, so I'm going to make this quick. But County Executive, something you mentioned earlier about the immigrant workforce with construction workers and restaurant workers, and being concerned that that could come to a halt with what happens in October. So
Yep.
could you get into that more? Like, what is the county really bracing for with that?
Well, it's first of all, it's not just going to be the county. This is going to be, sort of a national economic disaster. There are millions of folks here, obviously, who are here on immigration status, and I think the president himself has talked about getting rid of 11 million people, pretty large number of people. In Montgomery County, you cannot go by a construction site where you're not going to see a lot of immigrant workers. And if you go into any of the restaurants or any of the shops in Montgomery County, same thing. The back of the kitchen in the restaurants, the wait staff. So many of our places are really heavily dependent on an immigrant workforce. And so between our construction sites and restaurants and hospitality industry, if anybody's, been in a hotel and see who serves you or who's taking care of the rooms there, you can tell that it's a largely immigrant community. We know that a lot of these folks are here and they're not documented or not sufficiently documented. And if the president assembles the deportation army that he's trying to assemble and they start using it and deploying it, we stand to lose a lot of workers out of our community. It's going to be very, very destabilizing. It'll also be destabilizing to the housing market in some sense, because these folks live in a lot of apartments in Silver Spring and actually the rest of the entire county. And if they get deported, it's a lot of landlords are going to have empty spaces in their apartment buildings. So there are a lot of challenges that this could bring to multiple levels of the economy. And obviously, anything that negatively impacts on businesses and revenues ultimately impacts on taxes, more at the state level in this sense than here, but it's still going to impact on taxes here. And this is something I think people forget. Immigrant workers, because they have to get ITNs to work, and they actually pay taxes. They pay taxes and they're not able to take advantage of most of the programs that they pay taxes for. So they don't get access to Medicare or Medicaid. And we're going to lose a lot of tax revenue. And people are going to realize when they're gone that a lot of money that these folks paid, they was actually probably net positive in terms of revenues because they don't take the services that match the amount of tax money they put into the economy. So we're likely to take a hit in taxes as well. So it's not a good thing for the county. It's not a good thing for any place in the country where this is happening. You're already hearing stories about not being able to harvest crops, farmers not being able to get things out of their fields, meat packing plants losing the workforce. When the president puts this into full swing with his fully equipped army, this is going to get worse. And I think we need to be realistic about our expectations. Unless Congress comes to its senses and puts a stop to it, we may face some very difficult times.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marianne. Members of the media, any additional questions for the county executive or Ms. Thompson this afternoon? Kate Ryan, WTOP. Go ahead, Kate.
Thank you very much. If I could, in terms of the status of these workers and efforts to assist them in the district, we've seen some of these mutual aid groups try and intercept ICE or call out to people who are being taken into custody to get their names and get them some kind of legal assistance. Are you seeing that kind of activity in Montgomery County? And are you also seeing the economic impact yet? Are restaurants coming to you and saying, we can't keep up our business because we're lacking our workers, we're not seeing them?
I have actually heard that from some restaurant owners that people aren't coming in. They're concerned that, they're going to get picked up. So it's already having an effect. But I think, absent the large raids, people, aren't really sure whether, what exactly the president's thinking about doing. I'm one of those who, on moments like this, I actually believe the president when he says he's going to do something horrible. I usually figure, yeah, that's something he's going to try to accomplish. And I think he's going to try to accomplish this. And so, I know this is a real fear. There are citizen groups who are doing the very same thing in the District of Columbia. There are people who look for ICE's presence. There are people who will report where ICE is assembling. I know I've seen a couple of reports where they'd say, 2 ICE vehicles are over here. And they're not doing anything right now, but it was more like an assembly point before they went out to different parts of the county or back into the district. So, people are trying to get help for people who get picked up, but it's very difficult. Obviously, ICE doesn't let you get close to a person, doesn't let them stand around and give out their name, address, phone number, and identification or whatever they need to give people who are trying to help them. So this has made it really difficult. But we have volunteers out there who are doing their best. We could use more volunteers. We need, personally, I think people need to be more vigilant. If you see something, then please let the county government know. Let some of the immigrant organizations know so that people can try to provide support. But, we're going to see our friends, neighbors, and people who serve us departing from the county. And I think it's going to be hard on everyone.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. Members of the media, any additional questions this afternoon? No more questions? Well, thank you for joining us. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye.